Hello, I'm Philip Duncan from weatherwatch.co.nz with your global weather extremes for Wednesday, the first Wednesday of October 2021. Now, today's video is a little different. Rather than covering the top 10 weather extremes around the planet, we're going with the top 5 storms at the moment, the top 5 low pressure zones. And the reason we're doing that is so we can go into a little bit more detail about each one, showing you the next couple of days coming up as well, which just might be a little more helpful. The last thing I'd like to mention before we get into it, if you're a news outlet or you run a website, you're more than welcome to share these videos. The only thing we ask is that you don't edit them. You just leave it so that we still be able to clip the ticket on those YouTube ads, but we've got to pay the bills somehow. So thanks very much for all the support. Let's get into it with number 1 and Hurricane Sam. So this storm's been out in the Atlantic for some time now, and the good news is it's missed all of the land. You know, it hasn't gone into Bermuda or the Caribbean or even Canada. So it's just missed Canada. It's going past the Labrador Sea and it's heading actually towards Iceland and Greenland, where it's then likely to stall and fall apart. As for parts of the United Kingdom and Ireland, right on the outer edges of this system. So you will get affected by it as it just brushes through these northern areas, but for the most part, Iceland is going to be the main feature. Now, for those who've been watching our videos over the last couple of months, Iceland has featured a heck of a lot. There are a lot of storms that form in this part of the world, and so Sam is no different. So as it comes on through, it will start to unravel and form into an extra tropical storm, and that's when the center of it starts to get larger, but it also can weaken and sometimes they can get stronger. It sort of depends on each one. So as you can see here at the moment, parts of Scotland and northern England are certainly being affected by some wet weather, and it's windy across parts of Ireland as well. And that windy weather comes up into parts of Iceland, but it's a southerly, not a northerly this time. So it should be a little bit warmer. As we go through the next couple of days, you can see what happens. It moves right on in towards Reykjavik, and you've got wet weather coming in for that. There'll be some snow on the mountains, but rain lower down. And by the time we get to the end of the week, it's weakened a little bit, but hasn't really moved away. And by the way, there's another storm coming in behind it, a much smaller one. And the showers continue around parts of Ireland and the UK, Scotland area. That's where we're going to be seeing a bit of that wet weather. But when you come down towards London or even into France, you're not seeing anything associated really with that storm offshore. Moving to number 2 now, and we head back over to around Alaska and Russia, where we've got another low pressure zone right here, halfway between the two, although it's more on the Alaska side. The other day we talked about this storm around Russia. It's still here. It's much weaker now, and that's driving in some wet weather and a bit of windy weather and stormy seas over the past few days around Russia. I was talking about how people in this area live on the beach, right on the beach itself, on these sand spits. Take a look at Google Earth and you'll see what I mean in that area. Very small communities, but there are people living there, and this windy, colder weather coming into parts of Alaska, but not as cold as it has been because this airflow at the moment is sort of coming in from the south rather than straight down from the north. So it'll be a little bit milder in Anchorage, but you've got a fair bit of rain moving through there at the moment as well. Moving to number 3 on our list, and we're going back down to the equator and we're getting down into the Philippines. This is a big low that's just moved away from the Philippines. Actually, it was there the last few days, driving in some very heavy rain and plenty of thunderstorms. Well, now it's moving over and into Vietnam, where heavy rain is expected there. It's not the first one we've seen. We've seen a number of tropical storms moving into Vietnam in the last month or two. I think this is about number 4 coming through. And like all the other ones, this one is mostly a rain event, not so much in the way of strong winds. And again, Da Nang, the capital, mostly impacted by those heavy downpours all along there. As that storm moves in, very heavy rain with thunderstorms. Also, a big cluster of thunderstorms in Cambodia at the moment. It is unrelated, but that storm will move through and deliver more rain and more consistent humidity. Not that it really drops away at this time of the year, or any time of the year for that matter around the equator. Number 4 on our list takes us down to where I am in the southern hemisphere. We've got a big low pressure zone between Australia and New Zealand, but perhaps more interesting is this convergence zone in the middle part of Australia that's delivering some heavy rain in the next couple of days, and again next week around Alice Springs. And Alice Springs doesn't get very much rain, but this year it's had a few low pressure zones moving through and delivering some heavy rain. So as this system moves through for the South Island of New Zealand, up around Nelson and Takaka, a beautiful place if you haven't been there, expecting some very heavy rain, and slips could be an issue there. They've had slips across the winter due to some big rain events coming through to the normally dry and sunny region. And over in Australia, I just mentioned Alice Springs. Well, look at this line of downpours. They've had a lot of heavy downpours in this part of Australia this year. Very welcome after a decade of drought. This will be very welcome, seeing some rain coming through. And as you can see, it comes right in to the Sydney area over the next few days ahead. Number 5, and finally on our list, we go to India, where we've got another low pressure zone. The actual air pressure in this region has gone up quite a bit in the last few days, so that will minimize some of the big rain events we've been seeing hanging around Bangladesh and over here around Pakistan. But now we've got a new low pressure zone moving through, and it brings in a bit more wet weather for that area. So we're likely to be seeing around places like Chennai, heavy rain coming through there with thunderstorms, some heavy downpours. The areas you see with the orange blobs that are forming through the green, so these areas in here, those are the heaviest downpours, where you're getting up around 70, 80 millimeters of rain in just 24 hours. So a lot of humidity. And by the way, check out all the thunderstorms on the western side. Rainfall for the next 2 weeks, just while we're here, the areas you see in dark blue on the scale here, that's 300 millimeters of rain. So pushing in across the sea and coming in across parts of India. Very heavy rain still to come through in these dark blue zones. Just north actually of what we were just pointing to, north of Chennai. It'll be further north, but there's a lot of rain yet still to come through over the next 2 weeks. And that is all from me. Our final feature of the day, the image of the day, is coming from near the Maldives. It's this low. It's not really a storm. It's just a very perfect looking low pressure zone smack bang in the middle of the Indian Ocean, just drifting a little bit further away from the line of islands that make up the Maldives, and it will be moving out into open waters. And that's all from me. Thanks again for all the great support on YouTube. Please keep the comments coming, and also if you've got any ideas, any suggestions for these videos, or any places that you think we're not focusing on, please do let us know in the comments section. We'll be doing these videos until Auckland, where I am, stops being in a stay-at-home order. We're still in it for a little while yet. So we'll be making these videos probably for the rest of this month. We'll see you again on Friday with our next Global Weather Extremes update.